Well, I'm going to be dinner entertainment this evening, which is great. This is like Vegas, you know what I mean? Except I will keep my clothes on at this point in time. So that's good. I want to say, again, congratulations to all of the new charter holders. It is a huge achievement. And of all the things that I do at the CFA Institute, being able to congratulate people at a charter award ceremony for achieving the charter is probably the best part of my job. So thank you, South Florida, for inviting me down to participate in this. And I have a couple of words for you charter holders, new charter holders, in a little bit. But I'm going to show you a little bit about how the Institute has been changing over the past couple of years. We are and continue to be an ever-increasing global company. Right now, approximately 61% of all of our charter holders are in North America. Canada, US, and South America. So 61% of all CFAs right now. Global nature of the Institute. As I said, 61% of all our members are here. Only 18% of our members are in the Asia-Pacific region. But I show you this chart and I make this point because last year, first of all, we had 226,000 candidates who sat for the exam. But of that 226,000, 48% of them came from our Asia-Pacific region. China, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand represent the bulk of our Asia-Pacific region. And as I said, 48% of all of the 226,000 came from that region. So we really expect a huge demographic shift in the composition of CFA charter holders within the next 5 years. Okay? And by the way, if anyone has questions or comments that they want to make, by all means, let's keep this informal. Ask me. All right? So, currently, we have 149 member societies. Our newest society is in Kazakhstan. So we're everywhere. And again, we have 145,000 members. I was telling Phil, I just returned from a 2-week trip to Europe. So I was in Ukraine. CFA Ukraine held their 8th annual investment forum, which was very well attended. And I spoke there about ethics and went and visited some universities as well. And then from there, I went on to Cyprus, to CFA Cyprus. And the society had a retreat for all of its members. And then we were there during the week talking to the Bank of Cyprus, the Cyprus Stock Exchange, and 2 other regulators. So from Cyprus, I then went on to Moscow. And Moscow is planning an ethics challenge amongst the universities in Moscow. And I also talked to a number of universities, graduate students, about the CFA program, as well as about the importance of ethics. So we have societies everywhere who are really doing a lot in the area of education as well as advocacy for the Institute and for financial markets in general. So that's the global picture right now. So what we're going to do this evening is actually going to hopefully will be enjoyable. Because we're going to talk about ethics, but this is what we're going to talk about, notice I said we, is going to differ from what you may have seen on the CFA exam. So for all you new charter holders who have those ethics items that's still fresh in your mind, let me assure you that every single ethics question on the CFA exam has 1 right answer and 2 wrong answers. But in real life, most ethical dilemmas do not have clear right or wrong answers. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to place you into some real-life ethical dilemmas that charter holders have told me about, and then I'm going to give you the opportunity to vote on what you would do if you were in that situation. Now, whenever you're normally at a meal or when you're hearing a speaker, listening to a speaker, the speaker tells you, put all of your electronic devices away. I am actually going to tell you to please get your electronic devices out because you're going to use them to vote on what you would do in this particular situation. So when we get to that point, I'll ask you to get out your devices and we'll go from there. Oh, I should mention that, by the way, not only does every single ethics question have one right answer and two wrong answers, all the questions on the CFA exam, just so that we get that recorded, have one right answer and two wrong answers. So, you now can put 3 letters on your business card, CFA. But for all of you new charter holders, there are 3 other letters that I want you to think about. PMV. As new charter holders, we want you to mentor people who are in the candidates. So if you know of candidates at level 3 or candidates at 1 or 2, we encourage you to mentor them, because since you have most recently passed and gone through this process, you are the best people that they can turn to for guidance and support as they go through this process. So we certainly encourage you to mentor candidates that are currently going through the program. When it comes to volunteering, we want you also to volunteer. Of course, we want to encourage you to volunteer at the society level, but we also want you to volunteer at the institute level. The CFA Institute is truly a member-run organization. We only have approximately 600 people who work at the Institute. All the people who grade the exams, all the people who write the exams, all the people who set standards, who write the curriculum, etc., are all volunteers. They're not CFA employees. As a matter of fact, as a CFA employee, I cannot grade the CFA exam, nor can I sit on the Council of Examiners, because that's what you as volunteers should be doing or are doing. There are lots of roles that you can take as a volunteer working with CFA Institute. So we certainly encourage you to see what's available and give us some time, because that's the only way the Institute can continue to be the preeminent organization, and the designation can be the preeminent designation without the full support of our members, okay? Last one is participate. Yes, this society, as well as other societies, have a variety of different events. Lunch and learns, dinners, holiday party, whatever. The societies are holding these events for you, the members. So we encourage all members to participate, especially you new ones, because they represent great networking opportunities, as well as just great educational opportunities as well. So mentor, volunteer, and participate, okay? Remember those other 3 charters. Okay, so we've got, oh, that's all right. Nothing's, well, I should tell you, I'm a former professor of accounting and finance at Johns Hopkins University. So most things don't faze me, All right, so here's where we go. Let's talk about ethics. And this is really how we view ethical behavior. It's doing the right thing when no one else is watching, even when doing the wrong thing is legal. And one of the reasons why there's been such trust lost in the investment industry over the years is because so many of the activities that precipitated the financial crisis were legal, but they weren't ethical. And to this day, I think one of the reasons why the demand for charter holders continues to remain strong from employers is because they know as charter holders, we can't get away with doing just what is legal. We have to live up to a much higher standard and do what's ethical. So, when we think about ethics, this is how we define it. Ethics begins with education. It's important for all of us to understand the laws and the regulations in the countries in which we're doing business. So ethics has got to begin with education. Equally as important, ethics requires thinking. Thinking about honesty, integrity, character, and this last one, stewardship. And think about the last time that you went to the doctor. You went to the doctor because you weren't feeling well, you were sick. So you go to the doctor, you tell him or her what's wrong with you, they ask you some questions, they give you a checkup, and then they provide you with a prescription or some course of action that you need to take. As you're sitting there listening to that doctor, there is never a doubt in your mind that what that doctor is telling you is in your best interest and is solely in your best interest. As investment professionals, we have to do the same thing. There are clients who are entrusting us with their money, and they're trusting us to the fact that we are going to responsibly and carefully manage that money. There should never be any doubt in a client's mind that the recommendations or the products that we're selling to our client are solely in their best interest. So as doctors or stewards of our health and body, we must be stewards of our clients' financial resources. Now what's going to happen is I am going to show you a short case on the screen, and you're going to see that same case on your phone. All right, so here we go. All right, and all of these cases, by the way, are true stories, so I'll tell you what happened afterwards. All right, so, do you see this on your phone? Oh, good, okay. All right, so true story here. Your boss, who has hired you and has mentored you for the past 3 years, is being unfairly let go because of office politics. As the sole support of her family, she is concerned about finding another job. A month before she is scheduled to leave, she places a stack of files on your desk and asks you to copy them because she will use them in her job search. The files contain research reports that she wrote, marketing presentations containing her performance record, and spreadsheet models that she created. So what do you do in this particular circumstance? Do you A, copy the files, B, refuse to copy the files, C, only copy the research reports that she wrote, or D, only copy the spreadsheet models that she created? So I'm going to give your tables each a moment or two to talk about it and talk about it, and then vote. What would you do in this particular situation? And all you have to do is press A, B, C, or D. There's no submit button or anything else. So, has everybody voted? Have you voted? Good, 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 good.
Anything that produces while in your work,
We don't have the company policy to compare to.
Suppose if there is no company policy or whatever. Nah? All right, so has everybody voted?
Yes.
Okay. So let me ask you, is there, is there any issue in this particular case? Okay. All right. Yeah, we all have issues. So what do you think the issue is?
Who owns the land?
Who owns the work product? All right, there's a question of who owns the work product. Okay, and how do you normally answer that question?
I answer it that the employer owns the work product.
Okay, well, let's see how people voted. Anybody else have a comment? We're going to see how people voted, and then we'll continue. All right, so 94% of you said refuse to copy the files. So who would refuse to copy the files? Okay, great. I get that. But how are you going to refuse to copy the files? Because this is still your boss for the next month. Not only is this still your boss, this is the boss who has hired and mentored you for the past 3 years.
Well, if you feel she's doing the wrong thing, you have a duty to ignore. It's kind of like being in the Lieutenant Cowley in Vietnam. He had a duty to ignore an order that wasn't valid because it violated the rules of war.
But can you do that? Well,
Okay.
yes.
She's not going to fire the employee for not doing it because she's already fired.
Okay, well, yes. Yeah. Okay, but let me tell you, this is a situation that happened to someone who was in their mid-20s, and they copied the files. They copied the files because what do you say to a boss who hired and mentored you for the past 3 years? What do you say to a boss who you believe is being unfairly let go? What do you say to a boss who's the sole support of her family and needs this information to find a new job? This individual copied the files. They felt uncomfortable about copying the files, but yet they copied them. A month later, after the boss left, this individual went to the boss's boss and admitted what he had done. He felt uncomfortable about it, but he said, listen, so-and-so asked me to copy these files. I copied them. I just wanted to let you know. Well, the boss's boss was not very happy that this individual had copied the files, but he got in no further trouble than that. Because in effect, what this individual had done was help this person steal company property. Because everything that you produce at the firm is the property of the firm. And you don't even have to have a manual or anything else like that to really say that. But one of the reasons why I like this case, and by the way, when I do this with students, I often split the room in half and give the students 2 different versions of this case. One version is the one that you see here, with all of the drama and emotion in it. The second version has all of that stripped out, and it's just the facts. Your boss asked you to copy these files because she's going to take them with her for find her next job. Surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, when I give the students this case, more copy the files. They copied the files because, this is my point about this, there is a big difference between unethical people and unethical behavior. And most people who get into trouble are not bad people. They just happen to behave unethically. And one of the reasons why is this. We often make unethical decisions not because we are bad people, but because we are influenced by psychological biases, situational influences, as well as organizational factors. And it's these things that that lead to weaknesses in how we process information, and that's what drives unethical behavior. A couple of these factors are obedience to authority. We do something, we're asked to do something, we do it. And by the way, if you were asked in the war to do something and you don't do it, you can be shot. That's what I learned in Russia. You can be shot. Right? Obedience to authority. So our boss asks us to do something, and we do it oftentimes without thinking about the ethical dimensions involved in what they ask us to do. Conformity bias. We follow the crowd. We see people doing, everyone's doing it, so if everybody else is doing it, why don't we? Again, without really thinking about the ethical dimensions of what we're seeing everybody else do. Incrementalism. I always point to Bernie Madoff, who was actually caught by a CFA charter holder, by the way, Harry Markopolos. He was good, we love Harry. But anyway, Bernie Madoff did not wake up one morning and say, I'm going to steal $50 billion from my clients. It happens slowly and over time. I also often refer to this as the boiling frog syndrome. If you put a frog in boiling water, it will immediately jump out. But if you put a frog in, don't try this at home, by the way. If you put a frog in cold water and then slowly turn up the heat, the frog will boil to death because he or she doesn't feel the gradual change in temperature. And this is sort of how we are in environments. We could be in an unethical environment, but it's just unethical about small things. And then those things get more serious and more serious, but we really don't see that change in the seriousness of the unethical behavior that we're around. So again, some of the factors that can lead to unethical behavior. And I think this quote really capsulizes it. Situational influences have more to do with unethical behavior than a person's character. Under the right conditions, good people, and I mean all of us in this room, can be induced, seduced, and initiated to act unethically. So when you read about people getting into trouble in the paper, we all think, oh, I would never do this. How could this person have done that? But you just don't know what that situation or those circumstances were at the time that individual made the decision to go left as opposed to go right. All right? So here's our next situation, which involves a society. True story, by the way. Paul Hahn, a portfolio manager at ANG Insurance, is president of the local CFA society. In an effort to offer more benefits to its members, the society has contacted a number of insurance companies to see if they will offer discounts on home and car insurance. The society received bids from 5 insurance companies, including ANG. All board members, including Hahn, who worked for these companies, recused themselves from the decision-making process. After careful analysis, the board chose ANG because they provided the best offer. To thank Hahn for suggesting the company, ANG gives him a $1,000 bonus check. What should he do? Should he A, accept the check and disclose it to the board? B, refuse the check? C, donate the check to charity? Or D, donate the check to the CFA Society? All right, just reset it. So it should Yes? Good, good. All right. No, I will want to see. I'm curious to see what people said, and then we'll do the reverse on this one. Because it's a true story. I'll tell you what happened. And I did use this case at a society leadership conference in the Americas last year. And it caused a huge amount of uproar, and Mr. Hahn was actually in the audience. So after the discussion, I said, Mr. Hahn, please stand up and tell us what you did. And everyone was like, so, all right, so I'm curious. What did you say? Oh, good, all right. Again, so who said accept the check, disclose it to the board? Good, thank you, and why? Transparency. Transparency. It's $1,000. He didn't know he was going to get the check, so why not? You know, it was just for a referral. He wasn't involved in the voting, so I get that. Oh, who said donate the check to the society? Oh, that's nice. The two officers, yes. Did you say it as well? No, okay. All right. Donate the check, all right. Oh, okay. So who said donate the check to charity? Okay. Okay, but why not? The society's a charity, right? No, no. What would be the charity you would devote? Women and Children and St. Jude. St. Jude's. Okay, okay.
And who would determine which charity?
Well, it's your check. It's your money, right? You can decide to decide who you want to do it to. All right, but 56% of you said refuse the check. Who said refuse the check? Okay, I'm going to ask one of our newly minted, why, Jorge? Is it Jorge? Yes. Why, Jorge? Why on earth would you refuse the $1,000 check? You don't mind if I do this, do you? Okay.
Because up here it was kind of a kickback or something like that.
But it's not. It's not, but okay. Who else would refuse? Who else said they would refuse? Yes, sir. Why would you refuse the check?
There's not that much money to risk in trouble with.
Okay. All right, but why would you get in trouble?
I think it's more of a mental thing. Unless it was something that, you were sales-based and you were going to be bonused on this anyway.
Right.
If there's any gray matter, always go to the doing the right. Where there's no question. If you refuse to check, then there's no question.
Okay, all right, but still it's $1,000. It's Christmas time. Phil, what do you have to say?
I voted A, accept it, disclose it to the board.
Okay, all right.
But we had someone here that had a vote.
Yes.
She hasn't been asked yet.
Yes, please, thank you. What would you do? What would you advise Paul to do?
Well, I chose B to refuse the check because it's to avoid any kind of conflict.
Okay, okay. And I think, well, I'll tell you what happened in the real life situation, because this was, and as you can see, I can defend every single one of these choices. So there's not one that's better than the other. Yeah.
He called the CFA and actually should.
Because, well, he actually, a couple of months earlier, he did ask me this. But, this is not a code and standards issue. This is accepting or refusing is not covered in the code and standards, right? And if anything, I'd say you, by disclosing it to the board, you are trying to be as transparent as possible. But in the real situation, Paul refused the check. And I asked him, why did he refuse the check? And his main comment had to do with what many of you said. It was the perception of a conflict of interest, or the perception, as Jorge said in the back, that it just didn't seem right. And here's the point about this. And I argue with him, and I said, but you recused yourself from the decision. You didn't know you were going to get this money till later. It was only $1,000, etc. And he said it didn't matter to him that if members found out that he got a check from the company that is now selling insurance to the membership, that he could talk until he was blue in the face, but people would just not believe that there wasn't something underhanded going on. And so just to keep everything as above board as possible, he refused the check. Okay? And yes?
If a number of insurance companies were willing to offer a discount, why did the society have to only pick one? Why couldn't they offer all of them?
Because they just provided the best offer. And, you know, you only have 5, let's just go with the best one, as opposed to other ones that are still not providing as good as this one did. So now, if there would have been 2 or 3 that provided the best offer, that would have been different, right? Because the society would not have been, or the members would not have been disadvantaged by not accepting A&G. They could have accepted someone else's, right? So then I asked, well, why didn't you? He goes, yeah, even if I would have disclosed it to the board, the membership still might have been suspicious. And that was stiff. And I said, why not donate the check to charity? And he said precisely what somebody else said is, who decides the charity? And the fact is, you still receive the check, and then you're donating it, you still receive the check. So he didn't think that that was an alternative. And then when it came time to donating the check to the CFA Society, he thought seriously about doing that, but then it might cause a problem the next time that they put bids out to insurance companies, because they'd already received money from A&G. So are they going to perhaps favor A&G? So they said it still might have caused a little bit of problem, thank you, the next time that they put it up for bid. Since they had gotten $1,000, would they perhaps favor this company because of the $1,000, et cetera? So this gentleman, as so many of you said, just decided it was the cleanest and the easiest thing to do to refuse the check. Again, not that any of the other alternatives are equally as viable, but that was his thinking. Okay? Any other questions or comments? They're only going to get harder. I like this cartoon. Run this by the legal department, but run super fast so the ethics department doesn't see it. You know, and again, I mentioned this at the start of the presentation. There really is a big difference between the law and ethics. The law represents the minimum standard that we all must follow. Ethics represents a much higher standard. The law tells us what we can and cannot do, but ethics really focuses upon what we should and shouldn't do. So many employers have told me that when they're interviewing CFA charter holders, they feel a little bit more comfortable in hiring this individual because it doesn't guarantee that this individual is going to be ethical, but for the very fact that you all, or we all, have studied ethics for at least 2.5 years. The fact that we have to sign that affidavit every single year saying that we've lived up to and upheld the CFA Code of Ethics really means a lot to employers. Because as we know from the financial crisis, there were a lot of smart people who did a lot of stupid things. Equally as important, and this is something that the Institute works a lot with compliance departments or compliance areas. Because as we know, scandals at banks and other financial institutions continue to this day, even though compliance departments have been doubled in size. Compliance people obviously are very smart and capable people, but the question is, what happens? Why did this still occur? And so I think they do come off sometimes as police, but I think not enough emphasis is on what should you be doing. Compliance people focus upon the rules and regulations. As I said, ethics really is about values, and is this really the right thing that we should be doing for our customers and clients? And I think that was certainly part of the issue when it came to Wells Fargo and what has happened with Wells Fargo, you know? So, anyway, law versus ethics. Compliance versus ethics as well. So, here is our next situation. You're an investment advisor for Z-Bar Capital. You have an 82-year-old client, Mabel Adams, who lives in a senior living facility. Adams has 3 children, 2 who live out of the country, and 1, Annabelle, who lives close to Adams and oversees her care. It is Z-Bar's policy that advisors include a third party, relative, lawyer, etc., when meeting with elderly clients to prevent misunderstanding or inappropriate conduct from occurring. Over the years, you've built a strong relationship with Annabelle because she accompanies Adams to client meetings. A few months ago, Adams signed a new account agreement making Annabelle the joint owner. Since then, Annabelle has made several large cash withdrawals from the account. Now you are concerned about whether Adams will have the financial resources to continue living in the senior facility on a long-term basis. So the question is, what should you do in this situation? Should you do nothing? Should you B, contact Adams' other children? C, confront Annabelle? Or D, meet with Adams privately and let her know what Annabelle is doing? Wow, got quiet in here. A, B, C, or D? Do you have A, B, C, or D?
Yeah, third party. Yeah, the client's attorney.
Make sure that the elderly person is aware of the large capital continuity agreements, who that contact person is.
Has everybody voted? All right. No, this is good. This is good. These are questions that, good. I love this.
She would get more defensive and then it would take.
Yeah.
I'd ask for Michael McMillan to accompany me.
No.
It's only one answer only.
Only one answer only. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. This is a hard one, isn't it? And for anyone who works with older clients, this issue and another one, which I have very similar to this, are prevalent issues now, because you do have to worry about, elder abuse, elder financial abuse is an ever increasing problem, especially, and those of you who work directly with clients are on the front line of this. And so one of the things, and this is a true story, I'll tell you what happened in the moment. I want to see how everybody voted. But one of the things that I thought was so interesting about this story is the policy of the firm to say you need to have a third person in the conversation, because that really helps to limit it protects you as the investment portfolio manager, as well as sort of protects the client as well. So I thought this policy was very, very interesting. But let's see what people did. And again, there's no right or wrong answer here. Wow. Okay, so now, who would contact Adam's other children? 6%? Yes? Yes? It depends, but yeah, it depends. You picked B, so yes.
No, I picked D.
Oh, okay.
But it depends on the mental state, I would say, of the elderly person.
Right.
So
No,
if she was sound, I would just talk to her.
yes.
But if she was not in a good mental state, I would definitely talk to her and another child.
Okay. All right, so who said contact other children?
But you might not have the authority to be able to talk to the other.
Exactly. Is this a client? This is a really hard situation, but there's an issue of client confidentiality here, and what right do you have, someone could say, to go contact those other children, although you know that it seems like Annabelle may be trying to take more money for herself than the other children. But I see that's the drawback. All right, so confront Annabelle. Who said confront Annabelle? And I'm going to ask our newly minted charter holder, what are you going to say to Annabelle?
She can't really cover her tracks, and she's making cash withdrawals at this point, so she can't justify it, and you have steps that you can take after that.
And so why can't she justify it? Because she owns half of the account. She can take out money.
If she can give a proper reason.
I'm not sure it says in the rule book, I have to justify to you why I'm taking money out of my account.
Yeah, but I wouldn't go directly to Adams because of going back to, is she have a sound mind?
Right. No, I'm playing devil's advocate here, right? And one of the things that you may happen is you can confront Annabelle and she goes, I don't have to explain anything to you. We're closing the account and we're moving it to another firm, which is exactly something that could happen, which might be the best thing, but that is something that could happen.
You actually might want that to happen to take away the long tail liability from the other children.
That could be very much so. Now, 82% said you would meet with Adams privately. So you would break your company's policy. Who said D? All right, so you would break your company's policy and meet with her privately. Yes?
I think I'd have someone else in.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely a third party.
Or someone else that fiduciary capacity for on behalf of.
Okay, all right, so you're going to call Annabelle and say, or you're going to call Adams and say, come in, but don't bring your daughter. Bring somebody else.
You can take that out. What else? There might be a state attorney.
Go see her yourself, instead of to go see her directly.
Okay,
It can be figured out.
all right, but you are breaking your company's policy though, right?
But you have more of a commitment to the client than the firm.
Okay, all right, yes.
the thing that we can come back, why not meet with both together?
Okay.
Yeah.
And say what?
And say, are you both in agreement that this money is okay to leave the account?
Okay.
Because it may not last for your mother at this rate of withdrawal.
I mean, they both are owners, right? I mean, they both signed an account agreement that says we're both joint owners.
That's not one of their options.
But when you
Well,
confront
yeah, but that would be,
But
that
it's still not a vote.
Yes, yes, yes.
Do it,
why would that not be the default?
and then what will happen if Annabelle talks to the mother during the meeting and just doesn't let her,
Well, that's fine, you're both in the room
You still
together.
need a third person to watch it.
Oh, someone else, all right, okay. So I agree with those points, but Annabelle is, remember, she's 82 years old. So how is she going to get into the office? I mean, how is Adams going to get into the office without Annabelle? And I was going to say, if she lives in Florida, she'll drive there. But anyway, enough jokes about that. But okay. So I'll tell you what happened in the real situation. This person realized that they really were in a no-win situation. And they were concerned that the daughter was sort of exploiting the mother and sort of expropriating cash and things like that. So this firm also has a policy that when any suspicions arose like this, the firm would write a letter to the client, to the clients, and say, we are concerned about the withdrawals from your account because you may not, based upon your income and time horizon and everything else, you may no longer have the cash available. So have a letter written by the firm detailing all of the issues and then send it out, registered receipt or whatever, to make sure that both holders of the account received it and you expressed your concern.
Wait, that's not one of our options.
No, I know, that's why I wanted to. I didn't hear any of you suggest that either, you know.
It might have been a good time before you accepted the new account agreement to discuss why they were making this change. Was it so your daughter could pay bills, you know?
Yes, could be, yeah.
So that would give you a better understanding, or she said, well, my daughter's been the one who's taking care of me, if she takes some money out, then you would you would still have the elderly thing, is she thinking properly? But maybe it would give you a little more understanding as to whether or not she was coerced, whether they had thought about how long money it lasts,
Right.
why it was being done.
But again, these are all issues when you are working with clients as their advisor, especially elderly clients. These are issues that come up. The same with when you have a decline in cognitive ability, you know, and you have a client that starts forgetting things or whatever. What do you do at that point, you know? And you think that they're not making appropriate investments or trades. What do you do at that point? Hopefully you are in contact or you know this client has a lawyer or has an accountant, some other third party, which you mentioned, David, that you could possibly mention this to. Hopefully you know the client's lawyer and you can call the lawyer and say, I'm a little bit concerned about this. Let me tell you what's going on, you know, for cases like that. All right? So that's another alternative. Perhaps find out who the lawyer is or so. But in all these situations, you do risk the fact that Annabelle could get angry and say, you know, you're overstepping your boundary. I'm closing the account and I'm moving it to somewhere else. Okay?
Some suspicious on her part.
Yes, 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 very, very much so.
And you get sued over the long run, you might actually be happy, even though management may not like it short term.
Right. Because, you know, also a lot of times, if you did nothing and this continued, then you could also get in trouble with the other two children because they could say, well, you knew this was going on and you didn't do anything about it, you know? So, Yes, yes, and you have not done anything wrong. You have followed the law. But what if, by doing nothing, have you done the right thing ethically? And again, I'm not here to say one way or the other, but these are issues that it's important to think about. All right, so rationalizations. We use rationalizations to avoid or reduce the negative effect that accompanies performing an unethical act. We rationalize it. We do it to justify behavior that is inconsistent with our own opinions of ourselves. We also use rationalizations to change our perception of a situation or environment so that we can defend or excuse our own behavior. I love this quote. There's never been an act done since the beginning, from a kid stealing candy to a dictator committing genocide, that the person doing it didn't think he was fully justified. That's a mental trick called rationalizing, and it's done the human race more harm than anything else you can name. So here are a couple of common rationalizations. Everybody else is doing it, so it must be okay. Everybody else is selling subprime mortgages. Why can't we, right? If this is the way they do it at this other firm, if we don't do it, somebody else will. Doesn't really hurt anyone. My favorite, he or she deserved it. And then this last one, which newer entrants into our industry are most susceptible to, is this: I want to be a team player. I want to be loyal. You know, one of the things that strikes me about these things are, you know, over the past couple of months, we've heard about fraternity hazing. People in college, right? Who you have these kids who go and they're going through this pledge and they end up drinking, you know, like huge amounts. But it's this whole sort of conformity. It's all trying to fit in, trying to be a part of it that results in doing that, you know? It's sort of the same thing. All right, we have one last one. So, you are a fixed income portfolio manager, which would be a red flag right there. No, I'm kidding. You're a fixed income portfolio manager who works as part of a team that invests the assets of large institutional clients. The members of your team tell you in confidence that they plan to resign from the firm to start their own investment management firm. They invite you to join them, but you decline. Now, you know that their actions will, at least temporarily, affect the performance of your clients' portfolios. However, you decide to say nothing to your superiors. Your actions are A, okay, because you are respecting the confidentiality of your colleagues. B, probably okay, because personnel turnover is a commonplace occurrence that is to be expected. C, probably not okay, because client portfolios will be affected when they leave. D, not okay.
So I guess, probably. You're not handcuffed, right? You're not required to report everything everybody's saying. The firm will keep them active. You're right.
They told this colleague.
Yeah.
But they didn't say they were trying to
They were just asked.
Ah. Well, as I say, truth is always stranger than fiction, you know? And so, again, if any of you have ethical dilemmas that you want to share with me, we can memorialize them in a case. So let me play devil's advocate here. Let's play devil's advocate here. Let's suppose you're on a team with 9 other people. Friday afternoon, all 10 of you go home. Monday morning, you're the only one who shows up. So your boss is going to think, well, how come they didn't take you with them? And 2 is, I can't believe you knew what was happening and you didn't say a word to me. Do you think your boss is going to trust you after that? No. Probably not. So let's take the other devil.
So this is on Friday afternoon and they're leaving on Monday?
No, they leave, everybody goes off on Friday.
If it's that short a time frame, you can tell your boss it's not going to make a difference.
Well, maybe. I'm just,
This was like a month out.
I'm giving you this. Here's the other
I
situation.
might make a decision if they told me on Friday, we're leaving as of the end of the day.
Well,
And we're not going to tell our boss till Monday. We want him to be shocked when he comes in.
suppose if they just invite you, suppose that's not the case. Suppose they say, psst, 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 we're thinking of leaving. Do you want to join us? And there's not a time period or an immediate time period. So what are you going to do? Suppose if you tell your boss, you go up and you go, they're leaving, you rat them out. That's what we say in Washington. You rat them out. And so what's going to happen? They're going to be, all of your colleagues are going to be shown to the door that day. And they trusted you.
They'll come back and shoot you.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, but do you think anybody's going to want to have lunch with you in the lunchroom the next day? Probably not, right?
Well, you can sleep at night. You may not have a lunch partner, but.
All right, let's see what everybody said. Oh, okay. So basically, 80% of you said it was not okay. So you would vote to, who said not, C or D? Okay, so you would basically rat your colleagues out. Is that right, sir? Yeah, I'm talking to this guy right here. You would just rat them out.
Unfortunately. I mean,
Okay.
Doug said that I don't need all the extra friends.
Or colleagues, for that matter. Okay. All right? No. And see, here's one of these situations where, again, there's no right or wrong answer, and it's amazing how I get different results. So, okay, I've given you choice A, B, C, and D. Is there an option E out there that you can think about? An option E.
What is option E?
Something that I haven't thought of yet. Yes.
Tell them to, I don't know, the people that are leaving to have a conversation with the boss.
Okay.
And don't burn the bridge, you know, let them know you want to leave and start your own firm, and, you know, don't be secretive about it.
Okay. All right. I got that. Yes.
What I was thinking, and the reason I said probably not okay, is maybe there was a way that one person could kind of fill in the gap. I mean, not for 10 people, but I think there's an opportunity to see like what kind of things would fall through the cracks and how could I get sure that kind of knock that in.
Okay.
To the extent that, you know, until we can hire replacements, you know, that kind of, my duty is to the client, but at the same time, these are my colleagues, so there has to be a way to make it work.
And your colleagues obviously think enough of you because they said, hey, do you want to join us? Yes, sir.
I imagine the people in this room as being the clients.
Yes.
What would they want you to do?
I think I'm the one who's asking questions. Well, see, here's the problem is these employees are going to leave anyway. They're going to leave anyway. So that's probably not as big of an issue. Or if I'm the client, I kind of want to go with them, you know? I may want to go with this team of 9 other people. So I don't know. But as this individual, it's a problem because you're right. If they are leaving like within the next day or so, then it's not a big issue to tell. But if they're just talking about leaving, then what do? Because a lot of times people say, we're planning on leaving, but they may not be serious about it, right? What do you do then?
Well, I mean, you could maybe help facilitate that some of these people speak up about the issues.
Okay.
And give the firm a chance to fix it. In other words, well, we didn't know there was a problem there. But if, on the other hand, they've said, you know, we're going to leave, and it's because X, Y, and Z, and management has known about it, we've been telling them, and they're not responding.
How has that ever worked? No, you do have a
If they
point.
don't, management has had a chance to resolve the problem.
That's true.
Management can't resolve a problem it doesn't know exists.
But
So
may-
part of this background is, does management know their issues with this team? If 9 people are going to leave, they must have reason or reasons.
Maybe they just want to start their own firm and keep more of the profits for themselves.
Were they unethical
Yes,
by doing that?
exactly. Well, I don't know. But if you knew that they were leaving to start BlackRock, what would you say?
Cut off their passwords and internet access.
Immediately, right? But, okay, so here's what happened. This individual...
Yes.
Exactly. To whom do you owe a duty to? Somebody mentioned this to me. They said, under what circumstances did they tell, or where did they tell this individual that they were leaving? And I never heard that question before. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, did they tell them they were leaving in the office? Or did they tell them outside, like at a pub or so? And I said, well, what does that matter? And he goes, well, if you say things at a pub, that's much more casual and is less sort of, I don't know, affirming as if you say it there. Anyway. Huh? It's on company property, yes. So this is, yeah.
People were leaving, and they said they're white related reasons. We think clients are being treated unfairly.
Right.
You're the Wells Fargo person, and you said, I've heard people opening these fake accounts because the sales goals are too high. If you don't get the sales goals, you're fired. So I'm just going to go to another bank. You know, they said they're recruiting. They'd like to have you too.
Right. Unfortunately, it didn't. These are fixed income people, so they can't be trusted. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So let me tell you what happened in the real situation. This individual realized that they were in a no-win situation. So what they did was he went back to the team and said, I'm going to give you X number of days to tell the boss that you're leaving. And if you don't say anything within that period of time or by this specific period of time, then you leave me with no other choice but to say something myself. And that was the best way he felt to get out of this situation or resolve it. Because by them telling him, their problem became his problem, you know? And you kind of want to put the problem back upon the original people. Same way with the files. But when you copied those files, that problem became your problem because you assisted in it as well. Yes?
So what this person did was, he's still a rat, he was just being a gentleman about it.
No, he didn't report right away. He was both.
Option.
Yes.
He
both violated their confidentiality.
warning shot first. He said you got 2 days. Well, he gave a warning shot first.
Yes, yes.
I'm going to be a rat, but I'm going to give you a couple days before I become a rat.
Well,
Or don't let me be one. Huh? Don't put me in a situation to become a rat. I think it's like pushing back on them and saying, look, you're making it difficult on me.
Yes.
That's not fair.
Right.
So I'm going to push back and say, if you don't say something in the next couple of days, I'm going to be forced to say something.
That's a good compromise.
Yeah.
All right. Other comments? All right, so I'm going to end here with this comment. It's important to actively keep ethics in our frame of reference so that we don't fall prey to some of the psychological biases and factors that we talked about earlier. Every day, those of us who desire to act ethically must remind ourselves of our ethical aspirations and hopefully, and of the need to constantly keep our ethical antennae extended. And I'll leave you with this last quote. A code of ethics cannot make people or companies ethical, but neither can hammers and saws produce furniture. In both cases, they are necessary tools which need intelligent design and use. Okay? I will say thank you all very much.